I'm John F. Gately, broadcasting to you from Plymouth, Massachusetts, America's hometown, and we're learning more about the Maine shooting last week, and it's just devastating. I mean, the news itself was devastating, but now we are learning that Maine law enforcement knew about this man, Mr. Card, prior to the shooting that took place at the restaurant and the bowling alley. Maine police were alerted weeks ago about the shooter's threats, according to the Associated Press. Police in Maine were alerted just last month of veiled threats from the Army reservist who would go on to carry the worst mass shooting in the state's history. One of a string of missed red flags that preceded the massacre. Two law enforcement chiefs told the AP that statewide awareness alert was sent in mid-September, statewide, to be on the lookout for Mr. Card after the firearms instructor, he's a firearms instructor in the Guard, made threats against his base and fellow soldiers. But after stepped-up patrols of the base and a visit to Card's home, which turned up no sign of him, they moved on. In other words, they knew about it, looked for him, and then when they didn't, they were like, okay, on to the next thing. Oh, man, I'm not saying this is Uvalde level negligence, but this is going to take a lot of focus and attention to see how they're going to handle these types of things in the future time. We added extra patrols. We did that for 2 weeks. Okay, I mean, they made an effort. That's a significant effort. He never showed up, which it sounds to me as if they really need to find out, like, where was he for those 2 weeks in September? Was he at another mental health facility? Because what we do know is that he was at a mental health facility over the summertime. Where was he for 2 weeks that he wasn't at home? Said Jack Clements, the police chief in Saco, which is where where he lives. The county sheriff, Joel Murray, whose jurisdiction includes Card's home in Bowdoin, said the Army's Reserve tipped his department in September that the reservist threats, and the sheriff sent an awareness alert to every law enforcement agency in the state after his deputy came back from an empty-handed visit to check at Card's home. Well, this is it's just absolutely positively heartbreaking, this entire story. And to now know that they knew, law enforcement knew, because everything that we've heard up until this point was, oh, no, this guy wasn't on our radar screen. Remember, didn't the FBI announce that? Wasn't on our radar screen. And so, it leads you to believe that there's got to be some better coordination between local law enforcement and national law enforcement. Apparently, he should have been on someone's radar screen for I guess, more than 2 weeks. Just absolutely horrific turn of events here. And someone needs to be held accountable, for this in the future. Cops were sent to Maine gunman's home weeks before massacre amid concerns he was, quote, going to snap and commit a mass shooting. Oh, man, that's just absolutely devastating. Just horrific news. By the way, we are learning that the bowling alley, just-in-time bowling alley, not to blame the victim or anything, but it's an important issue here, had a small but sign at the front door that basically said that they're a gun-safe zone. Horrifically irony. I mean, I don't know if you can just choose. You see what's written on the door there at the bowling alley. They have smaller candle pin bowls, I guess, are larger legal normal bowling balls there. 94% of these mass shootings usually occur at a gun safe zone. If you're going to go do something like this, apparently there's some effort that people make, horrifically, that they don't purposely go to places where other people might have be prepared for you. They go to gun safe zones. 94% of these mass shootings are at so-called gun safe zones, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise. But it should also teach us a lesson about, especially here in Massachusetts, where they're about, once again, to effectively make everybody that owns a gun a criminal here in Massachusetts, that there's no deterrence out there, right? when it says gun safe zone, that means that but remember the criminals always obey the law, right? Is that what I'm trying to say? I think that's what I'm trying to say. We have more news out of the shooting that occurred at Worcester State College the other day. Officials ID the victim. So there was a shooting at Worcester State College the other day. Let's pick up Fox 25. Oh, muted there.
Were a deadly shooting at Worcester State University.
Classes are canceled today at the school. Boston 25 News reporter Kelly Sullivan live in Worcester this morning. Kelly obviously rattled by the violence on their campus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're hearing those gunshots in the middle of the night, definitely riling for a lot of students. But as we mentioned, all classes, day and evening, they are canceled for today. This comes after all of the homecoming and parent weekend festivities were canceled this past weekend because of the shooting. Now, police do say that none of the people involved in the shooting were actually students here at Worcester State University. However, the shooter...
Wait a second. None of the 4 people, I think there was 2 alleged shooters and 2 potential victims, one of which is deceased, sadly. None of them are connected to Worcester State College or University.
Is considered to be armed and dangerous. So take a look at this.
This is the alleged perp offender.
Picture. This is the suspect that...
God, he looks like 12 years old. It might not be a current picture.
Police released this photo of, and so they say it's 18-year-old Kevin Rodriguez. According to the DA's office, Rodriguez last lived in Lawrence and is wanted on charges of unlawful possession of a firearm and armed assault with intent to murder.
Oh my God.
And you can hear those gunshots from the cell phone video taken by students on campus. It happened around 2:30 in the morning in a campus parking lot. And when officers got there, they found 2 people were shot. They were rushed to the hospital. A 19-year-old victim died, and a 21-year-old victim has non-life-threatening injuries. Now, despite a search for the shooter turning up empty Saturday, the shelter in place...
All right, let me get this straight. There were 4 people involved. None of them are Worcester State College students. And this was at 2:30 in the morning in the parking lot of the college. What do you think 4 non-students are doing at Worcester State College at 2:30 in the morning? I'm not saying it, but I mean, could there drugs be involved? Right? I'm thinking there might be drugs involved, but I guess we'll have to know more later. Tomorrow, or rather on Wednesday, no, excuse me, I misspoke. Tomorrow, there is a court hearing in Boston about whether or not the so-called right to shelter law, which we should stop calling it that because there is no right to shelter in Massachusetts, the emergency assistance shelter program will be capped by the governor. So there is a hearing.
As part of this executive order,
suing.
President Biden is also calling on Congress
Of course
to
they're
pass.
suing. Let's shut that off. There we go. Of course there's a group suing. Commonwealth Magazine. Group seeks to block Healy's emergency shelter cap. Lawyers for Civil Rights, which is an organization based in downtown Boston, says the governor didn't provide 90-day notice. So you knew this was coming, right? This is Massachusetts. And there is a law here in Massachusetts that if the governor is going to make changes to a program that's established by the legislature, that change must come with a 90-day notice to the legislature that, hey, we're going to be doing some administrative changes to the program. And as a courtesy, basically, they gave a 3-month notice to the state legislature. Now, that's the basis of the court case. And again, let's just bring this up on the screen here. You can see that the hearing will be held tomorrow, Halloween, at 2:30 at the Suffolk Superior Courthouse, room 313. And the judge will be Deborah A. Squires Lee. We'll have to look her up to find out how she was appointed to the. We'll get more information on that. But effectively, and we're not going to go through their press release here, but effectively what they're going to say is that there was no 90-day notice, and therefore the governor must supply housing to all comers as part of the emergency assistance program. But the law that they're hanging their hat on is relative to the administration's changes to the program. But none of that matters. Not that the judge is going to see it that way. None of that matters because the entire program is subject to appropriation. You see, here in Massachusetts, we are the only state in the country that has a voluntary emergency housing assistance program. And by voluntary, I mean unlike other states in the country, they don't have this law in other states in the country. New York City has a right to shelter by consent decree from the early 1980s. We have a right to shelter law from the early 1980s, but it's only a law. It is not an enshrined right in the state or federal constitution. It is not being provided by a consent decree like New York City's is being provided by a consent decree. It is only a law. And when you look it up, as is pretty easy to do, so hold on, I'm running a business here. I have somebody that needs to talk. Okay, they can wait. When you look up Chapter 23B, Section 30, the Emergency Housing Assistance Program, the first three words of Section 30 literally say, subject to appropriation. In other words, if the legislature does not fund the program, then nothing else matters, including any changes that the governor may or may not put to the program. Now, theoretically, they could still be successful in this lawsuit saying that the governor should have made the changes to the program. But if the legislature has not appropriated enough money to provide it, then you don't have to do it. And right now, the legislature, has not yet approved the additional $250 million that the governor has asked for. They have only approved for this program in this fiscal year $325 million. I shouldn't say only, because that's actually a lot of money to begin with, isn't it? And once that runs out in this fiscal year, there is no obligation. There's no court order. There's no consent decree. There's no obligation to provide any more shelter after that $325 million is expended in this fiscal year. It is completely at the discretion of the legislature. And you'll notice they have not approved another dollar beyond $325 million. They might, but up until they do, they have no legal requirement to provide any money for this program. There, again, no consent decree, no right in the Constitution, Massachusetts or federal. There's nothing. So this entire program and this entire language is so important. When you look at this language here, it's called the Emergency Housing Assistance Program. That's what it's called. It's not the right to shelter law, because even though the media calls it the right to shelter law, there is no right to shelter in Massachusetts. There is no right to shelter. The only jurisdiction that I know of that has a right to shelter is New York City via the consent decree from, again, the early 80s. We here in Massachusetts effectively took that consent decree and copied it as a law in Massachusetts, but there was never a consent decree here in Massachusetts, and there is no right in the I've said it before. So I think from a procedural point of view, they'll win this court case on the fact that the governor did not provide the 90-day notice for administrative changes to the program. But that really doesn't matter if the legislature doesn't add the money to the program, because as soon as the program's out of money, poof, the program should stop. That's how the law works. So when you look at the program right now, we are currently at, and this is numbers as of Friday, October 27th, we are currently at 7268. We're projected to be at 7,500 by tomorrow, which numbers will post on Wednesday. We'll probably get pretty close to that. We might not make 7,500 by Wednesday. It'll be close. It'll be close. I've been tracking this. The government posts these numbers on a daily basis, but does not actually post any cumulative numbers like a chart. So every day I actually go to the website and make a chart. I'll have that for you later. In the meantime, what is the governor doing for you relative to
News right now regarding the migrant sheltering crisis in Massachusetts.
It involves a new program tied to the White House. Ray's at the breaking news desk now with the details.
Lily and Jean, the information becoming public just moments ago, putting migrants to work. That's the goal of the clinics put together by the Department of Homeland Security and the Healy administration. The plan will try to expedite work authorization for newly arriving migrants. As we've reported for months now, Massachusetts saw an influx of migrant families. Shelter space nearly at capacity. Governor Healy declared a state of emergency over the summer and called on the Biden administration to streamline the process of making migrants eligible to get jobs. The announcement this morning will establish a work authorization clinic for migrants who are currently in emergency shelters. The clinics will start November 13th, and the goal will be to help families get out of those shelters and to be able to support themselves. The White House already took some steps to...
I love the B-roll that they're using here. The B-roll is from when DeSantis sent the migrants to Martha's Vineyard, and Martha's Vineyard tried to get rid of them as soon as possible in less than 48 hours. That's the B-roll that they're playing there. But talk about a government that hates you. So they import people into our country illegally, and then they go try to get them to work and lower your wages, suppress your wages, to work against you, to compete against you. So if you're a low-wage worker in Massachusetts, you're working at a landscaping company or Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. If you're the grandma that works at Dunkin' Donuts, or you're working at Market Basket bagging groceries, you now have to compete against these people that come into your country illegally. You have to pay for their housing. You have to pay for that, and they get to compete against you and lower your wages. How much does the government hate you? Can they tell you how much they hate you any more than that? I mean, if that does not infuriate your average Massachusetts resident, especially your working class resident, I don't know what does. It is absolutely positively infuriating. Absolutely positively infuriating. They should be ashamed of themselves, but they're not, because of course they want the they want the extra labor, because they don't want to pay American citizens more money. Do they? No. So this benefits both business
here in Dedham, because we continue to stay on top of this break.
And of course, the political aims of the Democrat Party. Talking about the political aims of the Democratic Party, this post here is from Cassie Dillon from the Daily Wire outside of Harvard Square. I just can't even just play it.
Time I see those signs, you know what I do? I rip them down.
You rip them down.
All those signs that y'all post up, guess what I do? Rip them, spit on them.
Oh, you don't care about innocent hostages taken by murder and rapists.
What about all those Palestinian babies?
I care about those Palestinian babies that are being murdered by Hamas and Islamic Jihad hands. I do care about them. You don't, really.
I love Hamas. I think Hamas...
Oh, you love...
The guy says he loves Hamas.
Love a terrorist organization.
Fucking sand gloves.
Interesting. Harvard Square, everyone.
I think Hamas should blow the fuck out of Israel. I think they're all dirty animals.
That's not
anti-Semitism?
That's not anti-Semitism?
For real, they should be all exterminated.
Thank you.
Every single one of them. And their kids, their mothers, their children.
You know, I didn't want to play that. I only played it because, and it's just absolutely disgusting. I only played it because people should know that these type of people exist, and they should be shown up to the light of day. And there's a reason why that guy's wearing a hoodie and a mask. And if you look at any of the pro-Hamas rallies, the proportion of people that are wearing masks is extremely high. They're not wearing it because of the stupid virus. They're wearing it because they don't want to be identified. But when you have hate like that, you have to shine a light on it. And this guy deserves to be made infamous, not famous, infamous. And that is the core right now, unfortunately, of the Democrat Party. I remember, it wasn't that long ago, 10 years ago, maybe, when if you asked who had the best record on Israel, it was the Democrat Party, not the Republicans. Now, that's changed quite a bit, right? Right, AOC? So, Mayor Wu is going to be moving the tents from Mass and Cass. At least that's what she says. She's going to be moving the tents from Mass and Cass. Let's bring up the story. Boston to begin removing tents at Mass and Cass this week. And the D-Day for this is on Wednesday.
Removing tents from the area known as Mass and Cass. Starting Wednesday, police and public health workers will start enforcing a new ordinance banning tents and tarps from public streets. The city council passed the measure last week and notices were posted. Mass and Cass continues to see open drug use and homelessness. City officials say they have set up or identified about 100 temporary shelter beds to accommodate those leaving the tents. They estimate this enforcement will cost around $439,000.
All right, so
it's cloudy, it's cooler.
That is going to happen on Wednesday. I will be there. I'm going to go to the courthouse tomorrow relative to the issue we just talked about, relative to the shelter issue. I'll be at the courthouse. We're reporting from there tomorrow, Tuesday, from downtown Boston. And I'll also be in downtown Boston at Mass and Cass on Wednesday to report from that issue. Let me tell you exactly what's going to happen with Mass and Cass. They'll clean out 95% of the tents. They'll be gone. The media will take their photos. It will be recorded. And then 2, 3, 4 weeks later, a month, 2 months later, they'll all be back. All right, I'm John F. Gately broadcasting to you from beautiful Plymouth, America's hometown in Massachusetts. Have a great day. Bye-bye.